Welcome to our podcast, It's About Payroll. We're your hosts, Brian Escobar and Walter William Duncan III. Whether you're new to the payroll game or a seasoned veteran, we have something for you. All right, folks, welcome back. This is the last part of the deduction series, right?
Yes.
4 parts we did.
Involuntary.
Thank you. You're reading my mind. First one was what? Voluntary, involuntary.
Yep. Pre-tax
Second,
deductions.
Pre-tax deductions.
Taxes was number 3. And
Taxes.
today's episode is tax deductions and negative deductions.
Because negative deductions can happen everywhere. Yes. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, you had a note here about some interesting things here, right?
Yeah,
Catching up. Yeah. What's going on, man? How's your morning going?
It's going good, man. Just finished doing a lot of traveling because you were with me on this last
I was with you.
Yeah, working, man, and trying to maintain. That's it. In this mode is now that when I have my breaks, my time off, I'm really trying to do some like self-care stuff, man. And
good for you.
Relax and just recharge because it's going right now in this season.
Good for you. Yeah, it is. We're definitely cranking it up.
Yeah, what about you, man?
The same, man. Recovering from the week. We had long days, short night, and it's good. I read something recently that said when you feel wasted, when you feel like you're done, you're only about 40% through your tank. You still got 60% more energy, more push, more drive, right?
Yeah, that's that Navy SEAL stuff.
That's that Navy SEALs, right? Yeah, I don't know where I read it, but I read it in the last few days. Yeah, it was a Navy SEAL quote.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that. It definitely shows through when you go on a long stretch of work or something like that, when you turn on the afterburners and push a little harder. But nah, man, that's it, yo. Everything has been good. You don't have to answer if it's too personal, but you mentioned you're going to take a little IG, TikTok break. What was that about?
Just from like social media, man. You can get so caught up. I'll still leave my LinkedIn on there, but it's just sometimes you get so much information and like sometimes you just have to detox from it a little bit. Just take a little break. So for me, that's what I want to do is get rid of that negative, unuseful information and do other things like go out and make memories and stuff like that instead of staring and looking at a screen, you know?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
Sometimes social media becomes an escape. Then you just go down the rabbit hole and next thing you know, you're scrolling for minutes and hours.
Yeah, hours. Minutes turn into hours really quick on the phone.
Yeah. So one of the last things that I recently read here, I think it was either an article on LinkedIn or Google. They were talking about like how Hong Kong just passed a law to allow cryptocurrency to be traded from a retail standpoint.
Okay.
So I find it interesting because I wonder how that's going to eventually impact payrolls over there.
I think crypto, when you bring up a good point, it is definitely going to impact. They're already talking about how the blockchain will impact payroll. I think it's going to, as it impacts the world, right? As it becomes an official or more accepted currency, folks are going to want to get paid that way. That's that we need to keep our eyes on because it's going to be an interesting development as it evolves.
Yeah, it's going to be like, could you imagine, like, we as payroll professionals may have to learn, depending on where the industry goes, we may have to learn a little bit of cryptocurrency just to understand, because there might be some payroll professionals who might not be into cryptocurrency at all.
Oh, I think as payroll professionals, we need to get ahead of it for sure. Start reading, start listening to whatever you can, start consuming any content on how, and not only crypto, the blockchain as a whole. As we talked about it in one of the episodes, how it could be a way for employees to own their own information.
Yes.
Absolutely. Instead of a million companies having your info, we as the human controls our information, which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
We shouldn't rely on some other entity to manage our data.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should manage our own data. Right? Yeah, very interesting, man. Yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, so I found, getting into the episode now and the info, I found a really cool website the big guys has about payroll deductions, Google payroll deductions, and one of the big guys out there has a nice little link on. It's interesting. They broke it down just as we did and on the show, and the deductions and all that. So it's cool. It has a nice little calculator at the bottom, a gross to net calc. So hopefully
Nice.
Walt will remember to put it in the show notes for you guys.
Roger that.
But it also defined payroll deductions, right? And again, we're talking about post-tax deductions in this episode. If you've missed the whole series, go back and listen. Got some nuggets in there for y'all. And again, this whole series, Pay Stub Season 3, is about the employee's pay stub, paycheck, your pay receipt, what that looks like, what your paycheck looks like, what that receipt is about, all the information that it tells you. And then the definition for payroll deductions for this whole series are wages withheld from an employee's total earnings for the purpose of paying taxes, garnishments, benefits, health insurance, as we spoke about. And the withholdings constitute the difference between the gross pay and the net pay. I think that's very important. We're just talking about the impact. We talked about earnings. That was the first episode. Yeah, pretty much. And now the other big part of it is the deductions. That's how we get from gross to net. And that's where all the magic happens.
Yep.
These post-tax deductions.
Yeah. What is a post-tax deduction?
What is a post-tax deduction? Exactly. It is an after-tax deduction, also known as post-tax deduction, in the amount of money that's subtracted from taxpayer earnings after taxes. We talked about the hierarchy of the deductions that come out of your pay, right? And there is an order. So your gross goes in, but then the computer lines up what order they come out. So it's going to calculate your federal taxes first, and then it might calculate your benefits first. Then these post-tax deductions may come out third, because now it has to do the taxes first. It's this kind of order of importance.
Yes.
And and the post-tax deductions, unfortunately, are probably the least important. Even though Roth 401k contributions are included, still going to come out in a later hierarchy.
Yes.
And these are the post-tax deductions. Again, it's no pre-tax benefit. Last episode, we talked about pre-tax deductions. So there's no pre-tax benefit in these post-tax deductions. It just comes out your pay, right? Gross minus this deduction, and it does not help you tax-wise.
Gotcha.
I think that's the biggest call out, right? There's no tax benefit. There's no benefit to these other than it's paying for whatever it's supposed to pay for.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question then. So in terms of involuntary to voluntary deductions, can post-tax deductions, are they usually one or the other? They're more likely voluntary, or they're more likely voluntary, right?
No, not really, because garnishments are post-tax deductions.
Child support, yeah.
So that's a involuntary deduction, right? With garnishments get forced upon us.
Yeah.
So that's a post-tax. Can it be voluntary? And it can also be voluntary. So it can be both. It can fall into both categories.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm an employee, right? And I signed up for a deduction and there was an error. Either if it was my fault or I had a qualifying event, whatever, something changed. And I've elected to make the change. And the effective date allows me to, or is realized that with the effective date, that I am entitled to a credit because I've been over deducted for something.
Okay.
So that creates what we call a negative deduction.
Yeah. Yes.
How does the negative deduction, when you're giving that employee the refund, how does it impact? Does it impact their taxes? How does it impact them?
It depends. That's a great call out. It depends. If it was pre-tax initial, the refund, and then the right way to do it for the payroll professionals, payroll tip, you have to turn it back around in the same code.
Yes.
Right. You have to try to. If your system allows, that's the right way to do it.
Your finance team.
Yes. For reporting purposes, for everybody's purposes, you should use the same code to turn it around. If you're having trouble doing that, get your vendor involved. But turning that around will make a pre-tax an earning. It will now tax the check. And if it's not, it's supposed to. Right? Think about it. If you got the pre-tax deduction, you benefited from the pre-taxability of it.
The eligibility, yes.
Right. What did I say? The pre-taxability of taxability, whatever. But now you're saying, whoa, that was a mistake. Give me the money back. I shouldn't have made that last medical. I changed whatever. It was a mistake. but now you're giving it back to the employee. So now they lose that pre-tax benefit, and it should be an earning.
And Uncle Sam's like, I'm going to get you now.
Yes, Uncle Sam wants their money now. Exactly. It should be an earning. Now, negative deduction is how we do that. We turn it around instead of it, and I know it's like a double negative, but that's what it is. So if you do a negative deduction, it's actually cash back to the employee. It gives them the money back. That's right. So for all of us, yeah, I love how you act like you don't know. The listener, he's doing this. So for the novice, for the folks who are looking at their pay stub and are like, oh my God, why does it look like this? If there's a negative amount in the deduction section, that means you're actually getting money back. If you do the gross to net calc properly, you'll see that your net was increased by that negative deduction.
So yeah, as an employee, I would see a negative symbol in front in my deduction section on my stub.
Or like sometimes they do it in parentheses. Is it parentheses? Is that right? Some account, depending on the software, how they format it or whatever. So it'll look like either parentheses or a little negative sign in front of the amount.
Yeah, because the reason I wanted to put it on here is because I've received calls from employees, consumers, like saying, "Hey, I'm supposed to get a credit back, but you guys are taking it out again." And the parentheses it is
they don't realize,
deduction, but they don't realize that the money has been added to their net pay.
Yep.
So they see, and some people aren't aware to go look at their net pay and see, my net pay is a little bit higher.
Yes.
Because of this deduction credit that I'm getting back. I think that's an important nugget to put out there for.
Absolutely. And what I would tell you as a consumer is force or ask, not force, maybe a wrong word, ask the payroll department to walk you through the calculation, do the gross and net calc with you, and just because you never know. And it's not always an easy calculation. Right. Yep. I was just talking to another payroll professional. Shout out to Fran out there.
Fran,
Thank you so much. And I was talking to her about some payroll stuff. We were just geeked out on payroll. And she asked me what questions I used for the vetting process. These questions that we use for payroll professionals. And when you're hiring anyway, that's one of them. I asked them, give me a gross to net calc. And she was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Because she's, what questions do you use? And I don't have a set list. You as a payroll professional, as a hiring manager, you can come up with your own list. Just make sure that they progressively get harder, and you're asking them something that only a payroll person would know. And again, gross to net calc is not always an easy calculation, depending on what benefits you have in your pay stub. So, yeah, but again, ask your payroll person. Circle back to the consumer here. If you're a consumer, if you're a person that got a paycheck and you got a negative deduction on there and you want to make sure everything's right, just ask the payroll person to walk you through the calculation. And they should have no problems with that. And you'll figure out how that impacts your check. Make sure you get your money. Right? Again, this series is all about the pay stub. We want to make sure that folks are getting a better understanding of their pay stub.
Yes. Again, this cliche saying, knowledge is power.
Yep.
If the more you know, the more empowered you are as a consumer to be able to know how to use your stub, how to understand your pay and navigate that. And I think it will help you. I think it will help on so many levels for the consumer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And to that point, I've been pushing this series more on Facebook. Hey, folks, my Facebook is mostly my friends and family, so they're not listening to the payroll episodes. But this season, they should, because 300 million people in America get a paycheck? Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is applicable to 300 million Americans.
Yeah, not even I think definitely that. We're in other countries too, and people are listening in other countries. And
fair
for English-speaking consumers that understand this.
But here's a good call out: the other countries' checks may look different.
Yeah, true.
Right? True. So again, we're always asking folks, hey, if you do payroll in another country, DM us on LinkedIn. And come on the show. Teach us. Yeah, man, teach us. We're in over 25 countries now. We are eager to get other folks out there that do global payroll to help everybody understand how that global payroll picture looks, because it's definitely different, right? There was a short stint of time in my career where I did global payroll, and it's definitely different. Like Italy has these things that the employee has to pay and the employer has to pay. So those pay stubs are looking different. Not to mention they're in different languages.
Absolutely. Like, let alone, like, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, right?
Correct.
There's different things about Puerto Rican payroll as well. You know what I'm saying?
There
like,
is.
Different,
there are laws. I mean, yes, that's true. Yep. Yeah, folks. If you're a global payroll processor and professional, get on the show.
Yeah, get on.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up for today, folks. We are immensely grateful for you guys listening, sharing the impact. We got veterans of the payroll industry telling us, hey, I'm learning a little something. I can relate to everything you talk about. That's our goal. We built this for payroll folks. This season, we want to do something special for the consumer, and we'll keep repackaging this out and getting it out to folks. We hope it's something you guys share with folks, learn about your pay stub.
Yeah, and for those of you who like to read, we do have some articles coming out. So every episode is eventually going to be posted as articles, and for you to access and read and share. I'm
excited about that.
So that's another thing that we're going to be doing here. Next week, as we continue the series, we're going to briefly touch on net pay and some other items that may show on your stub, like for you to help you understand as a consumer on your stub. Okay,
because we're wrapping this up, right? We're coming to the end of this season.
Yeah,
but I think that we need to get Gerard on before we end the season, maybe as a season ender. Again, the man that inspired the consumer movement that we've been on. So we definitely want to have him on there, and just to wrap up the season, really. So we got to get on that. Yeah, thanks folks for listening again, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Peace.
Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of our podcast. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. And we hope that the information that we'll share with you will impact you as a payroll professional. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going.